in local procurement.
So talagang walang prohibition, there's no restriction that an NGO, CSO can supply or implement the project.
For as long as they are willing to
go through the process.
engage in open and competitive bidding.
So more or less, so yung previous 2 years, what were the project? Ano yung majority na hinihingi ng mga LGU?
Well, many of them are local infra projects like access roads,
More
water.
or less, this is how many percent of, kasi parang na-implement yun ho, is more or less 20.
We can provide you with that percentages of where the past actually it's just 2013 were invested.
Tapos
There's the menu that
so paano ho to? How do you pick the LGU? Is this first come first serve or bunutan ho ba to or
no, originally it was the poorest municipalities as identified by the National Anti-Poverty Council as well as
if you say that, parang pagkaintindihin ko, I think my brother mentioned na he was able to get funding for itong BUP, considering Makati ho is not the poorest.
well, the is high incidence of poverty or high magnitude because in urban centers, while the incidence of poverty may not be high,
So,
the magnitude is
Secretary, but siguro can you give us parang detailed kung saan nagastos yung previous years? Kung,
yes,
which province, which town?
yes. In fact, we
And then,
already
pwede ho ba to na may round 2? Or ano lang ho to? Pag nabigyan na kayo, you cannot qualify for the incoming year.
well every year
So every year ho, pwede kayong beneficiary ng grassroots.
the municipality, yes.
At may instance din naman ho na may mga LGUs na hindi rin nyo napapagbigyan pa.
Well, the thing is, the grant is not automatic. There are certain good governance conditions that you have to fulfill.
But the decision...
If you don't fulfill them, then you cannot get the grant.
Pero ang nagde-decide ho where to put the project is the...
It's the
Depart-
the
agency.
community and the local government.
Hindi, pero ultimately ho, ang mag-a-approve is the agency, di ba? Kasi, kunyari, ako sa LGU, isasubmit ko sa DA, sa DILG, or sa TESDA. And then, decision ng agency kung i-grant na yung request ng LGU.
Just based on the criteria. For example, the project falls within the menu. These are legitimate CSOs, and there is the process that was followed. And then they also complied with the good governance criteria. Then, so there's nothing arbitrary
Siguro,
about
can
it.
you also give me a list of LGUs na hindi pa ho nagiging beneficiary netong grassroots
Yes, we can do that.
budget?
Those who qualified and those who did not.
Pakisabay na rin, Secretary, yung listahan ng mga LGUs na na beneficiary, pero hanggang ngayon hindi pa nare-releasan.
Yes, for example, many of those in the arm have not been.
I'll give you a closer example, Quezon. Not all of the municipalities listed in the BUB were released the funds, although all of them are awardees of good housekeeping. And in fact, a resolution was passed by the Mayor's League in that town denouncing the non-release to certain municipalities in that province. So yung listahan, and what will happen to those funds that are not released?
Yeah, we will do that, Mr. Chair.
Please submit it na lang po.
Okay.
Tapos, paano yung neto? May feedback mechanism ho. What is the feedback mechanism? Lahat ho ba nung nabigyan niya ng pondo, updated kayo kung anong status ng mga projects?
Not all, because retrieving the reports is not that easy because some of them don't have access to.
So, paano natin nalalaman if sinasabi niya there's parang delay dun sa feedback mechanism kung talagang nagawa ba yung access road? How are you or how are we sure that money is being spent right?
Well, it's not that the project is not being done. It's just the report that's being delayed. But eventually,
Which means, dito sa ganitong programa, wala kayong parang repertorial requirement sa mga LGUs.
in fact, the reporting requirement is every quarter, and therefore, yes. For example, in 2013, we can show you to what extent the LGUs and the CSOs have been reporting on their projects.
Siguro, baka, can you also provide us a list of, kunyari, fully complied with na yung, kunyari, construction of, kung ano man yung construction of road, or kasama
Yes.
mo ba, kunyari, feeding program dito, or...
There is likely a project like that,
At
feeding
may
program.
cap po ba yung amount?
Well, for example, in for example, if you're a first to the third class municipality, there is a requirement that you provide 10 to 20% counterpart. If you're a fourth to the sixth class municipality, then it's a full subsidy.
Which is how much? May
Well, in
maximum amount
2015,
ba?
it's on the average 15 million.
So an
per-
LGU can
per municipality.
receive 15 million.
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
And
As
low
much as, but well, it can be very because some LGUs spread that money around to as many projects as possible. For example, they can do a level 1 water project. They can do access road that's not going to cost them 5 million pesos. So they can, for that amount of money, they can have a variety of smaller projects.
Pero yung ito ba yung validity ng project is also good for 1 year?
Well, they need to obligate it because otherwise if the project also the appropriation also expires.
And namomonitor nyo naman na within that year na
In fact,
nai-implement nila yung program.
in fact that's really the safeguard there because if they don't obligate it within the period that they should be, then they forfeit the funds,
It goes back to
the treasury.
DBM. Kasi parang I'm just worried about yung feedback mechanism. Kasi if you can see ho dun sa DAP na mga various projects that were given to LGUs, parang it's almost 400 million na hanggang ngayon parang humihingi pa kayo ng update dun sa LGU kung saan nila ginastos yung proyekto, kung nagastos ba nila yung proyekto. So I'm just parang medyo concerned lang ho ako dun kung talagang nafa-follow through ba yung kung ano yung programa, yung proyekto na sinubmit nila dun sa concerned agencies.
For us, it's also important because the project is just a venue for developing leadership, organizational, technical, financial, and administrative skills. So it is as important for us to be able to find out because if as a result of the project nag-away lang yung mga tao, then you would have lost the objective why you started it. But if as a consequence of the project, even if it fails, for example, but they were able to develop the skill to prepare simple feasibility or program of work or develop simple financial management systems so that they can properly manage and oversee the projects. And then I think it would have served its purpose.
Secretary, Senator Binay, correct me if I'm wrong, Secretary. The special provisions for GPB, formerly PUB, has a reportorial requirement.
That's correct.
In fact, for the 2015 budget, it almost copies what's found in the 2014 budget, which says that the agency shall submit in printed form quarterly reports on the financial and physical accomplishments of the amounts appropriated under GPB, kumbaga this year, BUB, to be submitted to the DBM, House Committee on Appropriations, Senate Finance Committee, and posted in their website. I just asked our staff, we haven't received a single quarterly report from any agency that handled BUB. Kayo po meron?
We receive our reports.
Would anyone know here if the agencies actually posted it in their websites?
We're not aware, but we
Buti pa ho kayo, binibigyan kami, hindi.
because the,
But there are such
but
reports, Senator Binay.
we will look into that, Your Chair.
I wonder, Mr. Chair, kung 100% compliance yung, for example, yung 1,233 LGUs, ito ho bang 1,233 LGUs compliant dun sa requirement na yun?
No, it's the agency who will, the agency in charge.
Yeah, but how can the agency report something when the LGU doesn't report to them?
Well, I don't think it's 100%, Mr. Chairman, but I think for the most part, the agencies have been getting the reports.
Siguro, can you furnish the committee
We can do that.
report kung ilan ho yung out of this number of LGUs, kung ilan na yung 100, ano ba tawag doon? Yung talagang every quarter compliant dun sa reportorial requirement.
It's also possible that the communities or LGUs may have been complying with the reports, but it's the agency that is remiss in that.
Which means siguro, Mr. Chair, baka can we ask for both? Kunyari, from dun sa LGU pa lang kung compliant na siya, and then yung concerned agency kung compliant din siya.
Kindly submit that to us,
What
Senator,
we
but
can
at least
provo-
from the agency.
Yeah, from the agency.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator, thank you, Senator Binay. Senator Legarda?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. May I request Secretary Balisacan, since we're in the macro, just to, based on your statements earlier on the impact of recent calamities on both agriculture and the infrastructure sector, the proposed, or no, the projected or the forecast growth outlook for this year would have been 6.5 to 7.5%. Is that correct? But would recent calamities change this forecast or its outlook for this year? And how will you adjust your targets based on that?
Our target for this year is 6.5 to 7.5, and that when we reviewed this last year and early this year, that was already after the Yolanda and other areas. We decided to keep those targets because we believe that they are still doable, despite the calamities, particularly in Yolanda affected areas.
These targets were set before November 8, no? Before Yolanda happened.
Oh.
And even in the aftermath of Yolanda and even after the effects of Glenda, we are able to maintain those targets. May we try to understand how will we be able to reach such targets despite the after effects of these natural hazards?
Well, Your Honor, Mr. Chair, as of the first quarter, as we have seen, we grew at 5.7%. The numbers that are coming out from the industrial production to exports to consumption, remittances, to other indicators, leading indicators of the economy, they seem to be quite favorable, and we do think that the growth rates in the subsequent quarters, the next from the second to the fourth quarter, would be better than the first quarter. We also do think that as we ramp up our spending and as the rehabilitation gain traction, reconstruction rehabilitation gain traction in Yolanda affected areas as well as in other areas like Bohol, those could provide additional sources of growth. So we do think that the 6.5 to 7.5% is still doable.
Earlier, you mentioned the negative impact on private infrastructure, or private spending in construction, and also the 0.9% growth in agriculture. This was already heavily discussed, but may I know what is it in the budget, or what is it in government policy, or even in the implementation of our budget that we must do to be able to spur growth and spending in these two important sectors? In short, if you were to realign or change or revise the budgets of past and the present budget, what is it that we have done wrong or that we have not done to be able to change this trend of, dwindling expenditure on private infrastructure and on lack of growth in the agriculture sector, which, as has been mentioned, is 1/3 of our population.
Let me address the agriculture first. I think that the problem there in our agriculture is kind of a structural problem. It has been going on for some time. It's essentially lack of number one of public investments. I think that irrigation, for example, I mentioned earlier our quite little or the little growth that we have seen in past years of investments in innovations, in research and development, particularly for agriculture. I keep on emphasizing agriculture because I don't know of any country, Your Honor, particularly in developing countries, where good and sustained levels of productivity growth could be achieved without investing in R&D. And in this, our country is really underinvesting severely in agricultural R&D. And that's one that we want to change. The other one, Your Honor, is that our rural areas, particularly agricultural areas, are so disconnected with the rest of the economy. For our, again, just learning from the experiences of rapidly growing countries, and especially those that have succeeded in addressing the poverty problem, what we see there is that when the rural population, particularly agricultural population, is able to move into other sectors as a result of improvement and opportunities in those sectors, particularly they could be rural industries, they could be fast emerging industrializing or cities, small cities. If that is happening, you are bound to see a very rapid poverty reduction. You see that in Indonesia, in Vietnam. So what I really would want to see in our budget, Your Honor, is to see to it that we are addressing that structural problem in the rural economy, which is the disconnect between our farms and the rest of the economy. Because if we can get that connection, that would reduce the cost of doing business, not only in agriculture, but also outside agriculture. We can make industries more competitive because there is less pressure for prices of food to rise. If you have high productivity growth, then therefore there's less pressure for wages to rise, and therefore industries can thrive and can expand without causing rapid increases in wages in early stages of development when you have so much unemployment and underemployment. So yung sa tingin ko ho, yan ang problema natin. Hindi short term ito, unfortunately, medyo medium term, long term. It is something that we have to invest on in the next decade or two. And the other, the third factor that I see as has been a major problem for our agriculture is policy issues. I think that insulating our farms, from competitive forces is not the way to go. We can, let me qualify that. We really need to protect our farmers, but protection has to come in the form of improvement in services, in higher, in access to technologies, in access to credit, in access to, in other words, their income per hectare has to rise, and not just output per hectare. Because what we have seen is we're trying to raise output, but income is not rising because inputs are also rising. I think that's wrong. But you need to raise productivity. That's the only way to make that happen, and ensure that at the same time we can take advantages of opportunities outside. And I mean outside the country. For example, the rice prices have been going down in the world market for some time now, but our rice prices have been going up. Certainly, that's the disconnect that I'm trying to say, that our farmers, our population could have benefited from those if we have manage those issues that I just described, Your Honor.
I agree with you, Secretary Balisacan, and thank you for that. And if we are to implement what you had suggested, may I know the positive impact on the 2.9 million unemployed, assuming these numbers are correct? In short, if we are to do that, how many jobs will it generate in the agriculture sector? Is there a direct correlation?
There is, for example, if we achieve the 6.5%, if we achieve the 6.5%, if we achieve the 6.5% growth this year, that should allow us to generate roughly 1.1 million pesos. And the good thing about that,
1.1 million
persons, 1.1
job.
million jobs. But the good thing about this, it looks small given the stock of people who are unemployed and underemployed, and also the new entrants to the labor force who number about 500 to 800, depending on the season or the year, persons every year coming in. But what I see as a positive development is that those jobs are increasingly coming from wage and salary workers. We have seen that the proportion of the wage and salary workers, which internationally is used as a proxy indicator of the quality of employment in the labor force in the economy. And it has been rising from 54% in 2010 to now about 57% today. And that we should continue to push. And I believe that if we get this program that we just outlined, that is a focused on the resurgence of manufacturing, developing our tourism, linking farmers to the market through agribusiness developments, logistics and infrastructure. These are the areas where you could create a lot of those high-quality jobs, Your Honor. And I think that I really believe that if we succeed in realigning those budgets, and we are moving in that direction, we could lick one and for all this unemployment problem.
Thank you for that, Secretary. Are we saying that with your optimism to still meet the 6.5% growth this year, you will project that it will create 1.1 million jobs? And as we sit here 12 months from now, we will be able to see the reduction in the numbers insofar as unemployment is concerned, which is, I believe, 2.9. So it will drastically reduce the unemployment to at least 1/3 if a 6.5% growth is reached this year?
Yeah, as we showed it earlier, the unemployment should go down from 7.2 in our baseline, which is 2013, to about 6.8, 6.7.
I'm sorry, I don't know where I got this 2.9. I saw it in a graph earlier. So it's 6 point. Say it again.
Unemployment percent. This is the proportion
Percent.
of the.
I'm talking about real numbers.
This is the proportion of our population or our labor force who are unemployed.
You would attribute 1.1 million jobs generated in agriculture with a 6.5%
No, the
growth?
1.1 million is not just agriculture.
Not just in
it's the
agriculture.
entire. But I
I
can
see.
get a breakdown of that. I could submit it to you, Your Honor.
It was 1.1 million jobs for a 6.5% growth, but not solely for agriculture.
Only for agriculture.
But per your,
No, what I would in fact expect to see is that if we succeed in invigorating our economy, that proportion, that the absolute number of workers employed in agriculture should decline. That's what should happen. It bothers me if it's increasing. It means that you are not being able to get the economy moving in a dynamic way and in a sustainable way. The importance of agriculture and total employment should decline with development. And no country, Your Honor, has escaped that. It's part of the whole economic transformation, because there's a very important reason. Number one is productivity is really much higher outside of agriculture. That's why it pulls people out of agriculture. Number two is that there's so much, the sources of growth are much more vibrant, more robust outside of agriculture. I mean, you can only eat so much per person. You know? You can, but the production opportunities and the consumption opportunities outside of food or agricultural products much higher. That's why typically the non-agricultural part of the economy grows faster than agriculture.
With a 6.5% growth, what contribution to GDP would agriculture then claim for this year, Secretary?
Fortunately, we expect agriculture to grow next year. For this year, I think it's about 0.5. It's not too high because of the distractions of assets in agriculture, particularly from the Yolanda. And now we have this coconut infestation and several typhoons last year in Central Luzon. So we are not expecting a high growth for agriculture this year. For 2015, actually, our assumption is roughly about 2 to 3%. If we got 3%, that's already quite good, given our history. But again, as I said earlier, if the agricultural sector can grow at 3 to 4%, 3 to 5%, on a sustained basis, that's a very remarkable performance, because it's always the industry and the services sector that tend to grow faster.
Earlier, you correctly stated that disasters had really had a negative impact on both agri, infrastructure, etc. May we know whether the present budget for next year has amply provided for disaster risk reduction, for preparedness in every department which is vulnerable to these ill effects of natural hazards?
I think one thing that's quite different in this budget is the explicit recognition of disaster mitigation and prevention. And as was shown by Secretary Boots, you have that's part of the pillar of our development program. I should mention, you are quite right there, Your Honor, that if we don't address this disaster and the vulnerability of our population, particularly in agricultural and rural areas, the war against poverty will be much harder, because as many people are moved up, many people are pushed down by disasters. And in the numbers that I'm looking, a big part of that poverty that we are seeing every year is due to that due to disasters. So it's indeed very important that we see here, and we have we're using Build Back Better as the platform for disaster prevention and mitigation.
Thank you. I'll just ask my other questions tomorrow, but may I request perhaps Secretary Abad to give us the total percentage of the whole budget that is allocated for disaster risk reduction, and perhaps each agency to be able to help us, let's say for DA, for DepEd, for DNR, etc., the percentage dedicated towards disaster risk reduction, unless it's already clearly stated.
Yes, we will do that, Mr.
Yes,
Chair.
thank you. I yield to Senator Surge.
Finally,
Thank you,
my
Secretary.
turn. You know, I want to thank all of you for staying this long, and I noticed that nobody touched this lunch. We must serve really bad food in the Senate because buong-buo yung rice ninyo, tsaka yung vegetables. So I won't be long so that you can all go and have a better lunch next door. I'd like to address my first questions at Secretary Balisacan. Mr. Secretary, I heard the president mention in his SONA that he created 1.2 or 1.3 million jobs in 12 months. Ito ba yun?
It's the April of 2014 versus April of 2013, and
That's 1.1.
That's an increase of 1.7 million jobs.
1.7 million jobs.
Uh,
That's more than the amount of people who are job seekers, that new job seekers every
Yes, sir.
year. No?
That's
That's
correct.
1.2.
That's correct.
No. And normally, say in 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013, we can only absorb about less than one half of that in our economy.
It's
Just give me a round number.
We are able to generate almost the number of new entrants to our labor force. It's fluctuate from 500 to 800,000.
The new entrance to the
new
labor
entrants to
force
the labor
every
force.
year
Every year,
is only 500 to 800,000.
because it fluctuates quite a lot depending on the season and the month of the year.
No, I'm not asking you to give me the month of the year. I want you to give me the whole year.
Yeah, the figure for the whole year is just simply the average for those.
Yes. So the figure for the whole year is roughly what?
For example, yung the average for 2013 is about total employment is about 38.
No, I'm asking the new entrants into
the
the
new
job
entrants,
market. These
it's
are people
about,
who graduate from school, drop out of school.
For 2012, it's 421,000. For 2013, it's about 596,000. That's a new
I've never seen those numbers before. Where
Well,
did you get those?
the Philippine Statistics Authority. This is our labor force survey.
Would you like to submit that to the
Sure.
to
It's
the
in my
committee?
presentation. I'm looking at slide number 9.
But I haven't had time to look at your presentation today. All right. Anyway, we do have scorecards, don't we? For example, our Millennium Development Goals. President never mentions that. How are we doing there? In the UN
In general,
Human Development Index, how are we doing?
the numbers have improved overall, but we have had some drawbacks in some or moving slowly in other dimensions. Like for example, the maternal mortality. That's one area where we are failing. Universal.
Why was this never mentioned by the President in his SONA? This is an international scorecard that we have subscribed to since 2000. So we're now what, in our 14th, 15th year? What is our grade?
Sir, we are the overall measure of human development performance that we are using traditionally has been the poverty and the employment, and that's what he used. And in the
You're not answering my question, Mr. Secretary. Why is that?
But poverty is part of
There
the
are
MDG,
8.
sir.
Yes, I know that. Poverty is number 1. But there are 8 MDG goals, right? To eradicate extreme poverty and hunger. Are we anywhere close to meeting that goal? One half, di ba? Dapat.
Yes, sir.
We were at
I think
33% when we signed
we
it.
will miss the poverty.
All right.
We'll miss
So,
the poverty.
by how much will we miss the poverty?
Well, we are now.
We're at 24%.
We committed. Well, when we in 1991, it's about 33%. That's supposed to be down to 16%, 16.5% by 2015. But it doesn't look like that. We would get there.
You're
But
an economist. Give me precise numbers. Don't give me round. rounded numbers
yeah.
or general statements like it doesn't look like we're gonna meet it.
Yes, sir. Well, sir,
We were at 33. Where are we today?
24. Well, it's 24.9 for
Right.
the
And we were supposed to be at 16.5 by next year.
correct. Ho.
So we're still a long way
It's
off.
a long way go. But let's put it this
No,
way.
no, wait.
kasi-
Just answer my question. How long a way off are we in terms of years?
Well, by if in the numbers that we showed you earlier, that the
When will we reach 16.5%?
baka 2017, 2016 now. Because
Baka.
yeah, because in our where's it? In our numbers by 2016 that would be about from 18 to 20%. It range yun ho kasi because it depends on our
Yeah,
what
yeah.
exact-
That's why I'm asking you to give me.
18 to 20% ho by 2016. So if we can move or maintain that performance, we would be at 16 by maybe 2018, 2017 now.
Okay, what is our total number of unemployed in this country? In absolute numbers, not as a percentage of
3 million ho.
3 million. Underemployed.
17% times roughly 7 million ho.
So 10, all in all.
Yeah.
Out of a total labor force of
40 million.
hmm,
40 million ho.
40.
Yeah, 40.
Yeah, all right. So about 25% unemployed and underemployed.
Underemployed.
All right. That's 25%. So why is it that you're saying we're generating more jobs than actually enter the job market? Therefore, our poverty rates must be going down much faster, di ba?
The poverty rate is going down ho, but I think that this year is quite remarkable, sir. That the 3 percentage point reduction in 1 year, that's quite high.
Yeah, I know.
By any international comparison.
But in the Millennium Development Goal, universal primary education, have we met that goal? Have we met gender equality and empowerment of women? I know
Yes, sir.
in the Senate we're
we are there,
almost
sir.
there, no?
We are
We will have 50% lady senators by next election.
I could the areas where we are not likely going to make it, sir, are the following.
I don't want generalized terms.
Yeah, I'm looking at the numbers.
Give me, yeah,
because we have
So,
this.
submit it na lang. Reduce child mortality.
Child mortality. That's one area where we are. Where's that?
No, we're failing in everything except the last one.
Hindi naman ho, sir.
Di ba?
No, hindi naman ho.
Improve maternal health.
Where's the health? Ito. The infant mortality rate, actually, we're doing well there, sir. The under 5 mortality rate, we are doing well. It is in the proportion of 1-year-old children immunized against measles. That's where we're not doing well.
You know, we'd like to see that scorecard, but you don't submit it.
No, it's available in our website, sir, the Philippine Statistics Authority. But we will
Yes, would
submit
you
it
do
to
that,
you.
please? Because it's really
We-
hard
we-
to go
yeah.
through all that. What about to ensure environmental sustainability?
That's goal 8, or goal 7. We are doing well in the proportion of families with access to safe water.